Good morning. Might be a bit of a hot potato, but we'll give it a go. Depends on how I frame this particular subject, given that I'm also experiencing it firsthand again in my life. That is, sitting in the sidelines watching your grandson or your granddaughter being raised by your children can be fraught with danger because, after all, mum and dad don't necessarily know what daughter or son-in-law might be going through. But we always like to give our tuppence worth, don't we? Well, here in the Philippines, of course, that's sparks of double trouble because, as you well know, in the Philippines, there's a tendency to pop out a little sprog now and again in every family, not always to the delight of their mum and dad, but nevertheless welcomed into the fold, so to speak. But this day and age that we live in is disposable. Everything's disposable. Disposable nappies. Throwaway plastic bottles. Liquid to sanitize. To sterilize. In the old days, it was a clean towel off the line. Clean nappies off the line. Making sure that the pin was a stainless steel special nappy safety pin. And that was just about all you needed. And what you had inside them, of course, often were liners that you also washed and sterilized. And you had a bucket that you would put aside with a sterilizing agent that you would soak them in prior to washing. Hence, they were clinically clean. But there was never a need to run down and buy a disposable nappy like there is today. One could argue that the cost of power and the cost of detergent nowadays is outstripping the cost of buying disposable nappies. But of course, disposable nappies don't do much for the environment either around the nostril or, in fact, anywhere in a tip. But again, this generation, and as was my own children's generation, it was often seen as a temporary measure, maybe if you were going out. But of course, here it's not uncommon to see a young mother breastfeeding her child on the jeepney or a bus in public with no feeling of shame or discomfort. In fact, they modestly cover themselves so that the child can breastfeed. Some from more simple backgrounds are not too worried if you see a full-blown breast and nipple whilst they change sides. But again, quite normal here in Asia. But there's also a side of Asia that I don't think necessarily is a good way to teach one's children. And of course, I have to make the caveat that I'm not talking specifically about anyone around me, but there can be a tendency to engage maybe a family friend or somebody trusting in the family to look after the child whilst the mother takes a rest. Now, of course, you and I all know that being a mum or a parent is a 24/7 job. It doesn't involve taking time out except when the baby is sleeping. Baby is usually put in a bassinet or something able to be moved around without disturbing the child. That way, the mother can carry on doing either relaxing techniques or maybe putting her hand to a bit of washing and hanging out. All of these things are part and parcel of bringing up a young child. The difficulty, of course, is that if it happens to a foreigner with his wife or girlfriend, you may well find the resistance of you don't know how to do it. Of course, like myself, with 5 children, some 14 grandchildren, and I believe at least 5 or 6 great-grandchildren. So, of course, I don't know anything. But the difficulty is approaching the issue when it quite clearly is not being handled as you would imagine, in a way that is not making a rod for your own back. If you think that having a child is something where you can lay back and maybe do a bit of TikToking and perusing the videos on Netflix or whatever, think again, mothers, because that's not part necessarily of doing it. It might be the time when the baby is sleeping for you to relax, but why would you ask the husband or boyfriend to pay for somebody to look after your child when the job is that of the mother? And again, as I say, we as foreigners know nothing. And of course, we'll always be told it's the way we do things here. But then you have to stop and think, you wonder why so many young women and young men grow up with the idea that they can get away with anything, simply because they've been brought up in a way that doesn't really install the feeling of confidence as the next generation. If they can't bring up a child, how are they going to face the world? Many women have children in the West even and take them to work. They have creches that are arranged by the companies, which is great. It enables the mother to carry out a job and get paid, and it also provides a certain security knowing that there's professionals looking after the child. But of course, if your mother's not working, then there clearly would be only one job here in the Philippines for her, and that is actually being a mother. And being a mother, unfortunately, shouldn't involve letting somebody else do all of the hard yard or the other things. If you can produce the milk, you feed it from the breast. When you go out, it's handy to have a bottle and a warmer so that you don't have to necessarily feed in public. But it seems to be done a little bit more as, well, it's a service station. You fill the bottle up, and that's how the baby gets to feel, that's how it has it. And occasionally maybe to the breast when it suits the mother. Again, somewhat alien to me, and alien to many, I'm sure. But we have to keep our nose and our mind and our mouths shut. This is where we have no say. And I take my hat off to those who've taken their wives to America, Australia, England, and New Zealand and Europe. And they've learnt very quickly that there is another way. And often that other way is a better way. A better way for all to adjust one's time and one's purpose to suit one's day. So if you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to keep your mouth shut when it comes to telling a Filipino how to do something. But that's part of the joy of living every day here in the Philippines. Catch you later, guys.